Greetings everyone. Welcome back to Miss Recaps. Today I'm going to explain an adventure drama film called Heidi, released in the year 2015. Spoilers ahead. Stay safe and enjoy. An orphan named Heidi is going to spend some time with her grandfather in the Swiss Alps. Heidi has spent the past 5 years living with her aunt Dede, during which time she has not been permitted to leave the house. Because Dede has a job in Frankfurt and cannot take Heidi with her, she chooses to disregard the warnings that her neighbors have given her regarding Grandpa's antisocial behavior and the possibility that he may be dangerous. Heidi takes off her boots and dress so that she can climb the mountain in her undergarments. She does this because she values the ability to move freely more than the desire to appear fashionable. Grandpa Alpahi becomes enraged as soon as he sees them arrive, and he immediately orders them to leave, claiming that he does not wish to take care of the girl. Dede makes it appear as though she is leaving with the child, but in reality, she takes Heidi around the back of the house and instructs her to wait there while she escapes. When Alpahi sees this, he gets angry at Dede, but Heidi tells him that she doesn't want Dede either. Because Alpahi does not want the girl to be a part of his life, he goes inside his house and locks the door. As a result, Heidi chooses to spend the night in the barn with the goats. The following morning, Alpahi starts Heidi's day off with some goat milk and takes her to church before returning home. Heidi is deemed to have a sound body and robust spirit after the priest gives her a careful examination. He believes that it is Alpahi's responsibility to look after his own blood, but since Grandpa won't change his mind, the priest comments that he'll be going to Mayenfeld in 3 days so that he can take Heidi with him to see if any farmer will have a use for her. After they have returned home, Heidi asks Alpahi if she should sleep in the barn once more, to which Alpahi responds that she is free to sleep wherever she pleases. Heidi searches for a new location after realizing that Alpahi has only one bed and one chair. She comes across a set of stairs, which she then ascends to reach an attic that is full of hay. After making the decision that that will be her bedroom, Heidi tells Alpahi that she would rather not leave, but she receives no response to her statement. The next day, goat herd Peter comes over to pick up Alpahi's goats, and Grandpa gets the opportunity to ask him to take Heidi with him for the day, and perhaps even teach her how things are done in the mountains. After Alpahi gives Heidi some cheese and sausage for her lunch, Heidi is happy to join Peter and spend the day running with the goats. Heidi finds that she enjoys this activity much more than being forced to spend the entire day inside the house, as her aunt was accustomed to doing. Peter sneaks a bite of Heidi's food while she is having a good time, and when Heidi discovers what he has done, he makes an excuse about the goats. Suddenly, 2 goats start fighting with each other, and Peter uses a stick to break up the fight between them. This is something that Heidi strongly disapproves of, and after she has forced him to stop, she makes him an offer. If he agrees to never hit a goat again, she will give him half of her food each day. Peter agrees without hesitation, but before he does so, he makes her promise not to tell Alpahi about the rumor that circulates about him killing someone in the past. When Heidi gets back to her house, she acts strangely around her grandpa and says that she'll sleep in the barn, leading Alpahi to quickly deduce that she is aware of the rumors and has been affected by them. He inquires of Heidi whether she places more stock in hearsay or in the evidence of her own eyes and ears. Before retiring to the loft for the night, Heidi follows her own best instincts and gives Alpahi a hug. The following day, while Heidi is continuing to have fun and bond with Peter, Alpahi is working on some carpentry to demonstrate to his granddaughter how moved he is by the affection she has shown him. When Heidi returns to the house, she is taken aback to find a second chair at the table, as well as some fantastic news. Alpahi has decided that she can stay there permanently. As the weeks pass, Heidi continues to look forward to spending time with Peter and even goes so far as to get a haircut so that she can feel more at ease. One day, Peter informs her that he won't be coming for a few months because he will be going to school, so they won't see each other again until the spring, but he invites her to stop by his house to visit him at some point in the future. Heidi wants to go to school as well, and the neighbors always remind Alpahi that it is important for a child to have both friends and an education whenever they go into town. Alpahi, on the other hand, is adamantly opposed to the idea and explains why Heidi won't be able to make it down the mountain to attend school once winter arrives. When it starts to snow, things become extremely dull. Alpahi carves a bird for Heidi to cheer her up, but it doesn't have much of an effect, so he decides to try his hand at making a sleigh instead. This turns out to be a successful plan, and Heidi and Alpahi have a great time sledding down the mountain together before Alpahi drops Heidi off at Peter's house for a playdate. Heidi is able to meet Peter's mother and grandmother, but Peter's father is already deceased when she does so. The grandmother is blind, and she is missing most of her teeth, so there are not many foods that she can eat. This presents a problem for the family because all they have is stale bread to eat, which limits the foods that she can eat. Peter isn't having much success in school, and he doesn't see the point in learning to read since he doesn't need it to herd goats. But his mother won't let him quit even though he doesn't understand why it's important for him to do so. Heidi tells Alpahi that she has finally understood how fortunate she is to have him as her boyfriend when he comes to pick her up. As the years pass, Heidi and her grandfather enjoy a tranquil and fulfilling life together. One day, Day comes back to say that she has found a nice place for Heidi to work with her employers, which would allow her to make friends and go to school. Didi's employers are the ones who have hired Heidi. On the other hand, Alpahi does not permit Heidi to leave and instead comments on how suddenly concerned Day is about her niece. Alpahi believes that it is inappropriate for Day to care about her niece. Day, feeling embarrassed, explains that the only reason she left Heidi was because she had no other option at the time. She argues with Alpahi, but she is unable to convince him to change his mind. Consequently, Day pretends to leave, but in reality, she continues further into the mountains in order to find Heidi among the goats. Day makes the offer once more, and when Heidi tells him she still wants to stay, he tells her that Alpahi also wants her to leave because he believes leaving would be better for her. Disturbed, Heidi gives Day permission to take her away, and Peter witnesses the entire event. Grandpa notices that Heidi is missing when he returns the goats to Alpahi. He quickly deduces what must have occurred and begins to run all the way to town in an attempt to find out what happened. However, by the time he arrives there, it is already too late. Day has already left with Heidi, and the other people in the neighborhood make fun of Alpahi because of it. When Heidi arrives in Frankfurt, she is taken to the Cece-Man mansion, where she is introduced to the butler Sebastian, the maid Tinette, and the governess Rottenmeier. Day reminds this Rottenmeier lady that this is exactly what they asked for, an unspoiled child of this age to be friends with the house's kid, Clara. This Rottenmeier lady isn't happy to see Heidi because she looks like a wild child who has no manners, but Day reassures her that this is exactly what they asked for. While Day insists on getting her share of the bargain and then leaves, Heidi is introduced to Clara, who is unable to walk and uses a wheelchair. The two young ladies became fast friends, and when Heidi pushed Clara's chair against the table inadvertently, Clara fabricated a story to cover for her friend by telling Rottenmeier that the accident was her doing. Heidi has a lot of ground to cover before she can be considered an appropriate companion for Clara. They bathe her, put her in a dress and boots that are appropriate for the occasion, teach her table manners, and forbid her from running around the house or being loud. When Heidi reveals to everyone that she is unable to read, everyone is shocked because she is required to take classes with Clara. Rottenmeier wants to get rid of her, but she can't do that until Clara's dad returns from his trip, so in the meantime, the instructor has to teach Heidi how to read while also keeping up with Clara's lessons. Heidi is quick to adjust to the norms of the household, but she doesn't completely transform and maintains the majority of her peculiarities. She still has a strong preference for the outdoors over buildings and has a recurring dream of being in the mountains. Additionally, whenever she has the opportunity, she sneaks bread rolls around in her pockets. She and Clara develop a very close relationship, and it is this friendship that prompts Clara to reveal what happened to her. After the passing of her mother, Clara fell ill to the point where she lost the ability to walk. When she first moved into this house, she struggled with feelings of isolation and confinement due to the fact that her father was frequently away on business trips. During one of the afternoons, Heidi decides against taking her usual nap and instead requests that Sebastian open a window for her. She laments the fact that she is unable to see the mountains, which prompts Sebastian to inform her that in order to see the mountains from this vantage point, she will need to ascend the extremely tall city tower. After that, Heidi secretly leads Clara outside and shows her around the city. Despite the fact that Clara is not permitted to leave the house under any circumstances. When they locate the city tower, Clara waits for them near the entrance while Heidi climbs as high as she can. However, she is left feeling disheartened when she realizes that she cannot even see the mountains from this vantage point. Clara is apprehensive about being by herself, but her disposition improves when she comes across a person selling kittens and makes the decision to purchase them all. When Rottenmeier returns to the manor, she is frantic because she cannot locate the girls, so she orders all of the servants to look for them outside. It is Sebastian who discovers them, but fortunately, Clara hides the kittens under the blanket that they were originally wrapped in before Sebastian can see them. When they got back to their house, Rottenmeier attempted to reprimand them, but her allergies caused her to start sneezing like crazy instead. When the cat suddenly jumped off Clara's lap, Rottenmeier was startled to the point where she climbed on the furniture, which made the other people in the room laugh. After that, during dinner, as a form of discipline, instead of being permitted to eat, Heidi is required to take a position in one of the room's corners, facing the opposite wall for the duration of the meal. Rottenmeier assures her that the next time they fight, she will lock her down in the basement with the rats. After dinner, Heidi decides that she will not put up with this, so she gathers up all of the bread rolls that she has set aside for Peter's grandmother and makes an attempt to leave. She is stopped by Rottenmeier, who reminds her that she is fortunate to be receiving fancy clothes and an appropriate education. But what really makes Heidi feel awful is when she sees Clara in a state of disappointment, sobbing as she runs to her room. Since that day, Heidi's dreams have become increasingly disturbing, and Clara has refused to come out of her room. Tinette explains that she is sick and places the blame for her illness on Heidi. Heidi, who is feeling even worse now, goes to see Clara as soon as her doctor tells her she's feeling better in order to reassure her that the reason she wants to leave is not because she hates Clara. Clara is aware of the situation but insists that Heidi stay because she is the only person she has left. Clara starts going back to school and leaving her room once again after Heidi returns to be by her side. However, Heidi is having difficulty reading her textbooks. A few days later, Clara's grandmother Cece-Man makes an unwelcome appearance, accompanied by Clara's father, Mr. Cece-Man, who has finally returned home. Rottenmeier is not pleased to see her. Clara is overjoyed to be reuniting with her family, and both of Clara's parents are relieved to at last get to meet her sister Heidi. In particular, Mr. Cece-Man is very pleased with how much better Clara appears as a result of his suggestion that he get her a friend. However, Rottenmeier tries to convince him otherwise by explaining that Heidi will not learn to read and will continue to act wild. Grandmother Cece-Man, on the other hand, is not willing to take Rottenmeier at his word and would prefer to see it with her own eyes. Later on in the evening, Grandmother Cece-Man reads Heidi a story before bed, but she stops reading before the end because she wants Heidi to finish it herself. Heidi admits that she is unable to read because Peter convinced her that doing so was pointless. In response, Heidi's grandmother Cece-Man advises her not to believe everything that she is told. Heidi is willing to put in more effort and practice more frequently as a result of her passion for reading stories and her intense desire to find out how this particular one concludes. The next day, Grandmother Cece-Man tells her son that Heidi is wonderful and that she is capable of learning to read with the proper encouragement. However, she can tell that the child is unhappy because this house is in direct opposition to everything that she is. Mr. Cece-Man is adamantly opposed to letting Heidi go because of the positive effect she has on Clara. In spite of Grandmother Cece-Man's assertion that Mr. Cece-Man wants Heidi to remain because she helps him feel less guilty about leaving Clara alone so often, when strange noises begin to reverberate around the house every night, and sometimes Sebastian even finds the front door open, things do not become any simpler. Even though Rottenmeier and the other servants in the house are convinced that there are ghosts there, Mr. Cece-Man does not believe in the supernatural. Each day that goes by, Heidi continues to work with the book. Heidi improves her reading skills with the help of the book that her grandmother Cece-Man gave to her, and she is eventually able to read the entire story aloud to everyone. Heidi's teacher takes all of the credit, and Mr. Cece-Man concludes that this demonstrates that Heidi is good enough to remain a permanent resident of the house. This makes Clara very happy, but Heidi is upset about it, and she cries herself to sleep every single night before she does. One evening, after grandmother Cece-Man has already returned to her own house, Mr. Cece-Man is playing a game of chess with the doctor when all of a sudden, they hear the noises that the servants had warned them about. The servants were concerned that grandmother Cece-Man might return. The men draw their weapons, fearing that the intruders may be thieves. However, it turns out that Heidi is just sleepwalking. Every night, she walks downstairs, opens the door, and stands there staring off into the gloom for a while before going back up to her room and lying down at the foot of the bed, imitating the behavior of a goat. When the doctor checks on her and discovers that she is shivering, Mr. Cece-Man searches the closet for a blanket and discovers a new pile of bread rolls that Heidi has been saving. Then, Heidi comes to, and when the doctor inquires as to whether or not she is experiencing any discomfort, Heidi responds that her chest hurts. After that, the doctor has a private conversation with Mr. Cece-Man to explain that Heidi is sick with homesickness and that her nerves are in quite a state, so she needs to be sent home as soon as possible. In the beginning, Mr. Cece-Man declines, but later on during the night, he can't stop thinking about what took place with his wife. When Clara asks her father about the ghost the following morning, he explains that it was actually Heidi sleepwalking because she's in so much pain, which is why they'll be sending her back to her family. This information causes Clara to experience a significant amount of distress, and she reacts by throwing a tantrum and yelling at Heidi before storming off to her room. Heidi is relieved to learn that she will be going back to Alpahi, but she is concerned about Clara and tries to talk to her, but Clara won't open the door to let her in. When it is time for Heidi to depart, the maids and other servants get ready a basket for her that is full of bread rolls and other foods that she can take with her to the mountains. Heidi entrusts Mr. Cece-Man with the responsibility of delivering her wooden bird to Clara, and asks him to promise that she will visit her someday. Rottenmeier predicts that once Heidi has left, they will at long last have peace again. However, karma quickly shows her that she was wrong. There is still a kitten roaming around the house. Tinette calms down, picks up the kitten, and decides to name it Heidi as Rottenmeier begins to freak out. Heidi kicks off her boots and rushes to see Peter the moment she gets back to town. This is the first thing she does after returning home. She goes to his house to say hello and drop off the food, and then she runs up the mountain until she finally finds her cherished grandfather. At which point she takes off her fancy dress and embraces him. Heidi is able to get back into her old routine very quickly, and she now spends her days galloping through the mountains with Peter while they herd the goats, but there have been some adjustments made. She is finally permitted to attend school, and as a result, she and Alpahi moved to a house in the middle of town during the winter months with the goats. Her new instructor is significantly more stringent than Clara's was, and students who misbehave are sometimes subjected to physical punishments. When she admits to her classmates that she wants to be a writer when she grows up, they make fun of her, but at least she does well in her classes, in contrast to Peter, who continues to struggle with reading despite Heidi's best efforts to tutor him. Heidi writes down all the fascinating events that take place and sends them to Clara. She also tells Clara how much she misses her and encourages her to come see her. When Clara receives the letter, it causes her to feel guilty because she didn't even say goodbye. In response, grandmother Cece-Man gathers a number of servants, and together they take Clara up the mountain. While the girls are overjoyed to see each other again, grandmother Cece-Man is having a drink with Alpahi. She then approaches him with a request to have Clara stay with them for a few days and offers to pay a fee. Alpahi is happy to accept, but he declines the money and states that Clara is a guest at his home. Now it's Heidi's turn to teach her friend about life in the mountains. Clara begins to wear only her underdress and eat without cluttery. She also gets to pet the goats, sleep on hay, and see a shooting star. Because the two girls are spending all of their time together, Peter is becoming increasingly envious of their relationship. Because Clara is unable to go up there in her wheelchair and Heidi wants to stay with her, he chooses not to participate in their activities when Heidi invites him to do so, and instead he goes herding by himself. Peter arrives at the house one morning before the girls are awake and discovers the wheelchair parked outside the house. His envy gets the better of him, and he decides to throw the chair off a cliff just before he makes his escape with the goats. As soon as the family realizes the chair is missing, Alpahi has a good idea who took it, so he puts Clara on his back and, along with Heidi, they proceed along the path that they normally take when she is tending the goats. While Alpahi reprimands Peter for his actions and orders him to keep watch over the girls for the remainder of the day, Clara will at long last have the opportunity to explore the rest of the mountains. Clara is in awe of the breathtaking scenery, the lovely flowers, and the dainty butterfly that frequently lands on her foot to take a rest. Clara is so determined to keep the butterfly that when it takes flight, she immediately stands up and makes a grab for it, which surprises everyone else in the room. However, walking is still difficult for her, so she spends the next few days practicing with the assistance of Heidi and Peter, who has reconsidered her after witnessing the miracle. After some time has passed, Grandmother Cece Man comes to pick up Clara. Her son is there with her, and he is yelling angrily the entire time. He does not like the idea that his poor sick girl was brought here. However, when Clara approaches them using her own feet, he very quickly changes his mind about what he was going to do. After comforting Heidi with hugs and tears, Heidi's grandmother Cece Man gives her a notebook and a pen so that she can begin writing stories. She also reminds Heidi to ignore the mean comments that her classmates have made because everyone should do what brings them joy. Heidi resumes her normal routine with Peter after giving Clara a bear hug and then saying goodbye to her, but from this point forward, she will always bring her notebook with her so that she can make time to write at least a little bit every day. That was all from the video. I hope you like it. Please share your idea in the comments section below. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day.